Greetings and solutions and happy Valentine's Day. Kendra Neck here. One thing you guys may or may not already know about me, I mean, it is on Goodreads, Facebook, and some other places. My birthday is February 7th, just 7 days before Valentine's Day. And as a Valentine's baby, I, of course, enjoy celebrating the holiday all year round. But as someone who's perpetually single, I have to get creative with how I celebrate it. Which is why, on this special day, on every 14th of July, 14th of every month, I hang out with my fairy tales. And since, you know, I might as well talk to you guys on the internet about 5 of my, what I feel are the most romantic fairy tales. First off, I want to let you know, you probably haven't heard of many, if not any, of these fairy tales, because I like to go to Obscureville. I just don't feel, I mean, there's some pretty romantic ones in, like, the ones Disney's done, but I really feel they just scratch the surface of what fairy tales are capable of. So, let's start off with, I'm going to throw books on the floor. Let's start off with Kendra throwing books on the floor. Yeah. I don't actually know where any of them are in these books. But anyways, first off, we have dharini. Most of these fairy tales are taken from the Lang book collections, colored book collections. You can find them there. But my first favorite would be dharini, which is a sort of starts out feeling like Rapunzel, and then it smells like it has a brief stint where it's Cinderella, and then you find out it's a 12 Dancing Princesses story. So basically it's about this girl who had long beautiful hair, but it was really heavy, so she cut off a bit of it, tossed it in the river, and a prince finds her bit of hair and says, I want to marry the girl who has this hair, because he fell in love with the hair. Talk about fetishes. But he goes and finds the girl, and she's like, yeah, if that's my hair, I'll marry you. And she just looks at it like, yeah, that's the part I cut off. Guess I'll marry you. On one condition. I go back home every night, and only be at the castle during the day. And he's like, oh yeah, we can be married during the day. The guy was obviously stupid, but pretty soon, but he thinks it's gonna work out. But then every day, all she does is sit in her room like this. Oh, I disappeared. I'm just like staring at her knees, and she doesn't talk to him, barely even looks at him, and he's like, this isn't what marriage is supposed to be. So he takes upon himself to find some invisibility potion and starts following her invisibly, and finds out she goes off and sings and dances. And I kind of like this one because then she figures out what he's doing and says, if you love me, don't follow me. And he's like, okay, yeah, I'm going to respect her wishes. And then she decides, yeah, she loves him. And the reason I love this one is because I'm just a huge fan of arranged marriages of conveniences, that they fall in love. And you know, it's a 12 Dancing Princesses, and I love that fairy tale too. So on to number 2, which is Casper and the Princess, which, you guys, I think I've mentioned that the only place you can find this one in text is on my blog, because the only book I've been able to find it in has been this one, and it's not on the internet. I have found one other storytale book that says it has it in it, but I've not been able to find it. But it's the story of a woodcutter who lives in the heart of Black Forest, so apparently it takes place in Germany. And in the middle of Black Forest, there is this mountain where a princess lives on the top that supposedly a wizard put her there because she refused to marry him. And she stated that only a true prince can get him down. the Casper has been watching princes come to try and rescue her, and none of them can succeed because all the challenges to get up the mountain are just too difficult. And one day he offers to help this puny little prince, his services. What he doesn't know is you're not supposed to get help. But this puny little prince lets him do all the work. So Casper lifts this impossible gate, chops through this impossible thing. I think they were waiting for a woodcutter, given that the second challenge is actually chopping through a wood thing. And then the prince says, okay, I'll fight the dragon. But the dragon just like, yeah, you, tasty snack. Or tosses them to the wind. Just depending on the version. Even though there's only one version. Yeah, tosses them to the wind or eats them for a snack, whichever way you prefer. And then the woodcutter gets to marry the princess. And I love this one because the woodcutter is Casper is putting her needs first. He's not doing it to win her, but he's doing it because he loves her. And you don't see a lot of that in fairy tales, so I love that. Number 3, we have, this one's got 2 titles. There's the one that's in this illustrated fairy tale collection, The Evil Enchanter, which is how I know the story. Or you can go to Lang's books, and it's Prince Narcissus and Princess Pontella. And I am not talking about the Prince Narcissus who is in Greek mythology. That guy's, messed up. This guy is actually nice, and he's the youngest son, and so he's going out into the world to meet his fortune, and has a fairy godmother who's watching out for him, giving him an invisible ring. And he reaches this kingdom where there's a king and a queen just partying up, being all sorts of, happy and merry. And he hears they have a daughter, but nobody has seen her, and they say she's a monster. He's like, I'm gonna go check her out. And he gets there and finds out she's not a monster. She is drop dead gorgeous. And he falls in love and just starts doing things to help out her daily routine. Just not, he's not confident enough to say that he's spying on her, which I think is a little bit creepy, but, he's young and in love, and at least he's trying to be helpful. And he isn't supposed to be there anyways. There's some guards there. And eventually he does introduce himself to her, and she's like, oh yeah, this guy's cute. But then an actual creep comes in, the evil enchanter, and so it becomes sort of a love triangle where he's gonna win, but the evil enchanter is the one who goes and gets mom and dad's approval, and it's a lot of fun. And when I retold Casper and the Princess in my Bikinias, I actually stole the villain from this fairy tale to be the wizard, so that was fun. Then number 4, I think I'm going to go with tragedy for number 4. So, yeah, tragedy. No, not this one. We're not doing Little Mermaid. I said we aren't doing no popular ones. Instead, we're going with one that's not a tale of unrequited love, but a tale of doomed love. The Yellow Dwarf. I don't own this one in any form of paperback version. It's in one of Lang's fairy tales. I don't remember which one. But it's a tale of it seems like it's setting up for Prince Thrushbeard's story, where this princess is shunning all of her suitors and stuff. But instead of a king getting fed up, her father getting fed up and saying, I'm going to marry you to the next guy that asks for you, her mother gets fed up and tries to go find someone to help her get her daughter to give a guy a chance. Except she encounters this yellow dwarf who says, "Oh yeah, I'll help you, give her to me." And the mother's like, "No." And he's like, "Nah, she's mine now." And the mother goes home and just keeps doing it until eventually the daughter goes. I forget why the daughter goes, but she similarly falls into a trap with this yellow dwarf, and he gets him to tell her to promise her hand to him. She's like, "Yeah, no, that's not going to happen." And she goes home and actually falls in love with this king of the Golden Kingdom. I forget. It's been a while. But he's a golden king. So Golden King and Yellow Dwarf are in her life, and Yellow Dwarf wants her to marry him, but she's in love with Golden King, and they both love each other. But the Yellow Dwarf comes and kidnaps her and claims her, and the fairies, I believe it's the fairies, decide to help the Golden King save her. And he gives her this sword and the shield and trudges into this thing, but he's on the condition of never drop that sword. And so he trudges in, he bests everything until the very end, where he rescues the girl, he snatches her up to kiss her and drops the sword, and the dwarfs kills them both, which I find such tragedy, but it's so romantic, so I just had to include it. And then to finish it off, we have another one of my favorites, Fairer Than a Fairy, which is in the Cupid and Psyche vein of fairy tales, which are the fairy tales that predated Beauty and the Beast, about a princess whose dad was an idiot. It's also got some Sleeping Beauty vibes. Her dad was an idiot, and says, "Oh, she's so beautiful. Let's not insult the fairies by not inviting them to the christening. Let's insult them by saying she's more beautiful," and names her Fairer Than a Fairy. Fairies, of course, take offense and kidnap her. When she's about 7 years old, take her dog and cat with her. She needs companions. So she grows up under the watchful care of Lagree. And Lagree is the oldest and most vile fairy you ever met. But she grows up to be only more beautiful than ever, which only makes Lagree more vicious and angry. And one day she's wandering through the garden, and she hears this like, "Hello there, you're beautiful." And she realizes that the rainbow over the fountain is talking to her. And it turns out the rainbow is an enchanted prince named Rainbow. I don't know if there's that's a coincidence. They changed his name, he changed his name to be that, or just the fairy's like, "You're gonna name your kid Rainbow? Guess what?" So, Prince Rainbow, and then Princess Fairer Than a Fairy. I honestly don't know what it is about fairy tale names. They're either don't have a name, or they're the most ridiculous ever. But Fairer and Rainbow just chatted up. They're so much in love until the day, I mean, they have some misadventures in this. Like, she lets the fire grow out, and then again she has to break and stuff. Yeah, they have some misadventures, but then he's like, they're calling him away to a new enchantment. "Well, I'm never going to see you again." And she's like, "Oh, but I love you so much." And he finally, when he does get taken away, and he no longer can appear to her in rainbow form, she casts all her cares to the world and runs away like she should have done years ago. The cat and the dog attack Lagree and push her off a cliff, and she dies. And the girl wanders through the wide world and meets 3 green sisters who each give her a trinket. One gives her walnut, one gives her something else. Walnut, pomegranate, and a vial. And she wanders through the wide world until she finds this castle suspended from a tree. Not a tree. From like 4 trees in the middle of a forest. And she's like, "I bet my prince is in there." I don't know why she makes this leap of logic. This is a fairy tale. But she's like, "I bet my prince is in there." And so she cracks open the first walnut, and it produces a tiny little porter, which is a man. tiny little porter who has been in there, and he produces an even tinier key, and he finds this lock and unlocks it, and she goes inside, and there, in fact, is her Prince Rainbow. I don't know how she knows it's him. She's never seen the guy, and he's sound asleep. But she's like, yeah, that's him. And she falls in love instantly because he's so handsome. But she was already in love with him. And then she cracks open her other two gifts, and they wake him up and get him sane, and they live happily ever after. I love fairy tales like that where she has to go and find her prince, and that's the only one that's probably the least problematic of those, because some of the others, like East of the Moon, West of the Sun, West of the Moon, involve them being married, and she has no idea what he looks like. Vein of fairy tales. So that one's really awesome. So those are my 5 most romantic fairy tales that I'm sharing with you guys today. And that's happy Valentine's Day in July. And if for check out more, I just realized it was supposed to be Christmas in July. Oh dear. Oh. I've already finished the video. How do I tie in Christmas? How? Ooh. Oh, wait, I got it. Have a frog Prince Nutcracker! Bye.